In this video, we're going to talk about grids. You'll see grids in Evergreen wherever there is a list that's presented to you. One of the most common places you see grids is when you search for patrons. So let's search for patron. And let's search for everybody whose first name is John. And up comes the list, and there's some column headers at the top of the column. There they are. So up here just above the list, you'll see this little assemblage of arrows. Here we're seeing in the middle that at this point we're seeing rows 10 at a time. If you get a nice fast internet connection, you might show 25 or even 50 at a time. We'll leave that alone for now. This first set of 10 is a page. If I want to go to the next page or page 3, I do that and I've got another set of 10 showing. If I want to go back a set to page 2, or if I'm on page 5, let's say, I want to go all the way back to the beginning of the list, I'll just click this. Now, one of the most interesting things about lists is you have a great deal of control over how they display left to right and which fields. For instance, with my login, typically want to see the last name over on the left, then the first name, then maybe the middle initial. I don't particularly care about the date of birth. I don't care about the ID. I don't want to see them on this list. Now these lists are unique to the login name, so every person can have their own setup for each of the lists. And the way we modify lists is this. Just to the right of the page, you see a little drop down. Maybe it's below it if there's not much room on the page. And below, in green, are all the fields that are currently showing on this list, and in orange are all the other fields that we could show. Now, I don't particularly care to see the date of birth, so I'll just click on that and it's gone. Neither do I want to see the ID, and I click on that and it's gone. Let's see, is there anything else on there? You know, I like everything else. I have a street address, but I don't have a city, so I look through the list and sure enough there's a city. I click on that and it pops up. Notice they all come in on the right. Now I want to see things differently left to right, so I open up the little drop down. Once I have the fields picked, I scroll to the top of that list, and the next thing I want to do is manage the columns. When I'm managing the columns, the things that are on the top will be on the left all the way to the right. Okay, so what I want to do is start off with the last name first. I can click this arrow to move it up one place, so it'll be here, or I can click this arrow to move it all the way up to the top. Let's do that. So last name. Next to it I want the first name. Now I'm going to do 2 steps here. I'll do that, and I'm going to move it down just one so it's below the first name. Okay, and I have an address down here. I have a city, so let's get that up in the list. And I typically want that right after the address, so I'll move that down a few. Building city, move down 1, and there it is, right where we want it. Okay, whoops. And I'm going to get the last name back on top. Last name, first name, street, city, library, the middle name, we'll put that up there too. And I'll drop it down just after the first name. Close that up. Last name, first name, middle name, home library, etc. So that looks pretty good. Now what I want to do is some of these fields are a little longer and a little shorter than I might want. So I open up the little box. Now we've just selected our columns to show, and then we manage them left to right. Here we can manage their widths. Expand it or shrink it. For instance, the library is a little wider than I may need, so I can shrink that. It got smaller. The street address can be a little bigger. Clicked on the expand and I made it bigger. So now that I have this pretty well set in terms of the columns that I want to show, left to right their position, and each column as wide or as narrow as I want it, finally I save the columns. And this is what they're going to look like every time I log in and every time I do a patron search from now on. So that's working with columns briefly and working with grids briefly. So with that, thank you for watching.